Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Dandadan Season 1, Episode 2. Another great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we're immediately picking up where the last episode left off, and I love that Momo refuses to allow Ken to ever use his actual name because she's in so much denial. Like, the man I'm in love with and that name is associated with a man. Like, just the universe is kind of like, she's like, no. This is some sick joke by the universe. Don't even use your real name anymore. Going forward, you're Akura-kun. So it's like, but he kind of is like, okay, sure, you are doing all this for me, so I'll do it. And she's like, oh, are you happy about it? It's like, I think on some level, Ken probably is, because it's almost like you giving him a nickname means you are a little closer, and probably like doesn't really know how to be well adjusted around other people, So either way, they end up making their way to her home because it's like, well, might as well talk to an expert on this, and that expert being her grandmother. I love when they roll up to the place, immediately try to step through the threshold, and Ken immediately catches on fire. It's like, yeah, it makes sense. It's like a, your mom, your grandmother's a spiritual maiden, like medium, so it just makes sense that this place would have wards against evil spirits and stuff, and he's just burning, and the solution is just to toss him in water. It's like, oh, should have probably thought that through. It's so interesting, despite like knowing and believing her grandmother, but maybe believing in her grandmother is such a super recent thing that she was just so in denial about everything for a while that, I mean, I guess with all the craziness going on, you didn't think about it. You probably didn't notice little things, and maybe you did notice them, but then you kind of forgot about it. But the moment she took it down, I'm like, yeah, but you can't put it back up, can you? And the end of the episode, Bruce, no, you couldn't. I was about to say, like, couldn't you put it back up? It's like, no, you would have to, like, Ken would have to leave and be outside for you to be able to kind of take advantage of the fact is because him being inside while that's up would be worse because he'd have to rush to get back out. But I mean, who knows if he'd have enough time to get out. End of the episode kind of shows you won't have enough time to get out. I mean, it probably is a thing of once you cross the threshold on the inside, you're probably stuck. So he would burn to death and die. So it's such a complicated. I'm so curious to see what the workaround for this is going to be. I doubt Momo's going to have to like be doing this the entire time, but it's an interesting and complicated setup of her having to constantly focus on keeping Turbo Granny in place. It's like, yeah, you can't even change your clothes and close the door without him transforming. So that sucks, but eventually was able to change. Both of them were able to, but then she does go, I am curious to see what's like down there. That, Turbo Granny says she took your weenie, did she? And it's like, yes, she in fact took it. She's like, oh, let me see it. He's like, no, even if I did have something down there or don't have anything down there, it's still kind of wrong for you to be checking it out and stuff like that. But, it's kind of like, yeah, he kind of puts this on Momo. It's like if she had never challenged him, he was like, yeah, but she was like, you're the one that was kind of shoving all that occult stuff in my face and kind of denying the existence of ghosts. But once again, it's just Ken didn't know how to act because he doesn't have any friends. And for him, he was so desperate. He talks about like being so desperate to not lose this opportunity. So he got a little too hyped up, and he didn't think much of it. And it's just like, even if we're butting heads, we're still talking. So he just doesn't. He's an awkward human being. He doesn't know how to like communicate with another person, and but he's like, yeah, once this Turbo Granny situation resolved, you never have to talk to me again. And she's just like, that's your own. She's like, that's why you don't have any friends. Like, you push people away because you're just assuming you know how I feel. And like the fact is, when he sinks down to the ground like that, makes me wonder, did he have friends at one point in time and then something happened? I'm so curious about that. Because like, once again, Ken talked about it a little bit last episode, but it does feel like Momo opened up a lot more about her grandmother's situation than he did about his friend's situation. Maybe there's more to it, but it just feels like there was. Because immediately afterwards, and she's just like, oh, hey. And then like, he's like, you're ugly. And it seems like it was his way of just being like, I'd rather just like start a fight between us than like get real about how I'm really feeling. It almost felt like that. Because it's so interesting because it almost feels like Momo's someone that maybe is someone who's, I was about to say, like, it's hard to say because they both kind of do, but I feel like maybe Momo's a little more okay with like wearing her heart on her sleeve, where maybe like Ken isn't, where it's just kind of like, oh, like, you know, it's a defense mechanism of like he starts shit just because he's sad. And once again, he's just not a well-adjusted person because he doesn't know how to act around people. So, like I said, I feel like there might be more to the friend thing, but we don't know. But I love us finding out, like, once again, they never put the thing back up, which, once again, at the time I was like, why didn't you put it back up? And I was like, no, it's a good thing you didn't because it would have screwed over Ken. But yeah, the ward was keeping the evil spirits away, so stuff immediately locked in and came through. But what I thought was so interesting was, like, right, there's like this black smoke everywhere, kind of almost gives like Uzumaki vibes, just because obviously watching it at the same time. But it starts poisoning them, and they're like literally dying from it. And then a giant sumo, at the time you were thinking a spirit shows up, and it is the only one talking. I think that's probably your key sign between what's an alien and what's a ghost. Or spirit, is because Turbo Granny say is weenie, whereas like the aliens say banana. So it's like this thing is associated with the aliens. I don't know if like, I don't think it's, no, because it's not the same species, because like it's not this what they're called Fleetwoods because they were found in like Fleetwood, America. It's Ken's perspective on it, but it's like it's not a ghost, it's an alien. But it's like, wait, so you're saying like the ward warded off not only evil spirits but aliens too? It's like, well, maybe there's a commonality. I was like, I guess anything with malicious intent would be like something of that malicious like level. Maybe that's what correlates or connects it, or maybe there is a deeper connection between spirits and aliens, which I thought was so interesting, considering, like, once again, last episode dealt with both, but now it's like, oh, we're dealing with an alien creature, and they're running for their life, but it's like, how do we fight this thing, especially because, you know, Momo's only just getting acquired, you know, control of her powers, and it's like, how do I can't really fight this thing while also keeping a curse at bay. Like I said, it's quite the conundrum early on, but I'm sure they're going to have like a workaround, something that kind of lets Ken seal away his powers without like, I don't know, maybe it's a thing of he's always going to need Momo in a proximity, but maybe it's like a thing of she won't always have to actively use her powers to like keep it in check. We'll see. Because it's a thing of like, I don't know whether it's just because she was doing it for so long or just because her mind is split, but at one point, you know, when she's trying to keep back the curse, his hand, like the rest of his body and like his head turned back to normal, but his hand like morphed and stayed. And I'm wondering, is it a thing of either she was so exhausted because she had been doing it like from the end of last episode up until now, she's been continuously doing it and it's put a strain on her? Or is it just a thing of like, no, you need 100% focus to do it. But in that moment, he's like, right, release the curse. Like, keep my head intact so I can like maintain some of my consciousness, but release enough of the curse. So, you know, and this is basically his version of a, you know, DMC wise, Devil May Cry wise. It's like, oh, this is his devil trigger. So activates it, and I like the aesthetic and look, but I also love that it's like, oh, as she says, it kind of breaks his psyche. So he's like, oh, I'm overwhelming with power, but I'm also depressed. And it's just like every sentence is ending with, yo. And I'm like, I love that. And she's just like, stop talking like that. That's so annoying. But it does seem like it's still the Turbo Granny thing of just like, yeah, your strongest weapon on you is your mouth. Which is so interesting considering like the whole wanting to gobble up that weenie, right? So bites off 5 of the fingers from one hand, but the problem is it's too much for Ken to handle because he's just like, yeah, human body isn't meant to move that fast, so he can only, like, his normal human body can only take so much of it. So, but then like Momo gets it in her head of like, well, he is a sumo wrestler, and if you notice, he's like, well, this alien might fall by the same rules, or like there might be, which is like how you come to that conclusion, I don't know, but it's like, well, you're willing to try anything, so it's like if we can get this thing to his hands to touch the ground, it'll lose. That's kind of like the perspective they have, because it's like, yeah, the moment your hands are touching the ground, it's like you've lost the match. So it's like, okay, so all we have to do is get it to touch the ground. So take out its leg, one of its hands touch the ground and it disappears. But I love how trippy that is. When like it's falling, it manipulates its legs and makes it shoot out a different part of its body to stop itself from falling. Which, yeah, it's cheating. But and it starts like beating up Momo, like hitting with a massive combo. But for her, she's not giving up because she's like, nah, I'm gonna do this because this thing's a cheater and I don't like cheaters, so I'm gonna win. And it keeps punching and punching and punching, and she refuses to let the curse out for Ken because this was all part of her plan to be deeper and deeper into the wall so that they're on the other side of the thing. They say it in the episode, but I've never known the actual word for Tori. She's like, because because part of the Tori was stuck in the wall, she was able to interesting enough and smart enough, technically being punched through the wall, technically we're on the other side of the Tori. So she grabs Ken, like ends up grabbing the talisman, putting it in place, and the sumo alien gets burned to a crisp. So it all works out, they're victorious, but the problem is, like, she still took all those blows, so Momo passes out, and the curse starts coming loose, and Turbo Granny's free. So crazy episode. I'm excited to see where the next episode takes us with this. Caught a little preview. I was looking at the intro being like, is that supposed to be Momo's grandma? And based on the preview we got, I'm like, oh, it is. I was like, interesting. She's kind of got like a gangster Bayo vibe to her. She's a hot grandma, which is interesting. I wonder if there's going to be more to it. Is it going to be kind of like what am I thinking of? Genkai? Is that, yeah, from Yu Yu Hakusho, where like she could make herself younger. I wonder if it's going to be something like that, or is she just naturally a hot grandma? Like maybe she was like young when she had children or something like that. I mean, like, you know, if we want to, Marissa Tomei as Aunt May, like, come on, like those type of vibes. So I don't know. I'm curious to see. Like I said, just like her whole vibe is kind of like, I was not expecting. That's why I was like, it just popped in my head watching the intro of this episode, being like, is that her grandma? It's like, grandma's kind of got it. She kind of like acts like she's kind of got that delinquent energy to her, you know? So I'm like, I'm curious to see who she is and like what her personality is, especially considering like, I was about to say, like, to be fair, every time we've ever seen her grandmother, it's always been in the perspective of her as a kid. So maybe she has like a very warped perception of who her grandmother is versus like who she is in reality. Or maybe like when she's doing her medium thing, it's like I said, because she does look a little older in the flashbacks. Momo, so it does seem like maybe she uses spiritual energy or something to make herself young. Look on, maybe it's something like that. I don't know, but it's going to be the clashing of grandmas next episode, so that's going to be exciting. I should also note, like, that intro goes so hard. I think it's like, that's like everyone's like going nuts for it. In fact, ironically enough, the group is it's a hip hop duo called Creepy Nuts. And apparently, I think because of this anime, that song is just like shooting to the, like, there was some like chart stuff last week. It's like, oh yeah, like they're hitting like number 2 and number 4 on certain charts and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, it's a banger of a song. So like, I'm not surprised people out there, it's kind of cool too. Like, you always discover new artists that way. Like, one of my favorite groups is a band called Back On. I got introduced to them because their song Chain is the opening to Air Gear. Either way, tangents and all that aside. So I just also wanted to like note that. But I'm so excited. Oh man, I love how weird this anime is, and the series is, and I'm excited to see where everything takes us going forward from here. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.